Welcome to Rock and Roll Showcase featuring American Graffiti, the Music, Part 3. As we left Part 2, Richard Dreyfuss was starting to feel his bad boy side as a member of the Pharaohs now. He's totally out of control as he gives into the idea of hooking up a chain and line to a police car parked in the car lot. The Pharaohs race by and the police car takes off to give chase, but doesn't get very far as they lose the wheels, the axle, and everything. If you look real close in the background, there's a movie theater, and the marquee on this theater lists a Francis Ford Coppola movie called Dementia 13. By the way, one of the main reasons several studios initially turned down the script was because George Lucas wanted some 40 songs plus in the soundtrack, which would obviously lead to a large bill over the rights. Universal Studios finally agreed to fund the picture when Lucas's friend Francis Ford Coppola, fresh off the success of The Godfather the year before, came on board as producer. The song playing in the background as all this is going on, Come Go With Me by the Del Vikings.
Well, love you, darling, come and go with me, come home with me, baby, yonder sea, I need you, darling, so come go with me. Come into my heart, darling, we will never part, I need you, darling, so come go with me. Yes, I need you, yes, I really need you, please say you never leave me. Well, say you never, yes, you really never.
Never give me a chance.
Come into my heart, darling, we will never part, I need you, darling, so come go with me.
Never give me a chance.
Love me, darling, come and go with me. Baby, yonder sea, darling, so come go with me.
If you recall, when Milner and Carol are cruising, a car full of girls pulls up next to them, and one of the girls throws a water balloon through the window and hits Carol right in the face. It was scripted for the balloon to hit a location inside the car and splash onto Carol, but Paul Lamatt and Mackenzie Phillips immediately began to laugh, and Phillips ad-libbed the scene so perfectly that director George Lucas just kept it in. After Carol's hit with the water balloon, she tells Milner to catch him at the traffic light where he and Carol take revenge. They jump out of Milner's coupe and John proceeds to let the air out of the tires of the girl's car while Carol sprays its windshield with shaving cream. After finishing their revenge, they run back to the Deuce, which now has the doors closed. Lamatt actually jumped onto and over the car during each take. Director George Lucas became a little concerned that Lamatt's boots would put some dents in the hood and the trunk, cautioning him to be careful. You see, Lamatt didn't realize it was not just a movie prop. The car belonged to someone. Well, all in all, John Milner knows he needs to get rid of Mackenzie Phillips before the big race, so he has to trick her into giving him her address. You're 16 by Johnny Burnett plays in the background.
You come on like a dream, peaches and cream, lips like strawberry wine. You're 16, you're beautiful and you're mine. You're all ribbons and curls, oh what a girl, eyes that twinkle and shine. You're 16, you're beautiful and you're mine. You're my baby, you're my pet. We fell in love on the night we met. You touching my hand, my heart went pop. And ooh, when we kissed, we could not stop. You walked out of my dreams, into my arms. Now you're my angel divine. You're 16, you're beautiful and you're mine. You're 16, you're beautiful and you're mine. 16. You're beautiful and you're mine. Oh, well, you're my baby, you're my pet. We fell in love on the night we met. You touched my hand, my heart would pop. And ooh, when we kissed, we could not stop. You walked out of my dreams, into my arms. Now you're my angel divine. You're 16, you're beautiful and you're mine. Well, you're 16, you're beautiful and you're mine.
After the police car stunt, Richard Dreyfuss did earn the respect of the Pharaohs, and leader Bo Hopkins wants him to hang out with the club and not go to college after all. As they're riding along, we hear Wolfman Jack on the radio talking to Floyd and saying, "Floyd, I cannot look on thee. Love took my hand, and smiling did reply, who made the eyes but I?" This is actually a quote by the Welsh metaphysical poet George Herbert. We hear Wolfman Jack continue with the poem, "There stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy." Of course, the words from Johnny B. Good. Dreyfuss declines the offer from Bo Hopkins, and they part friends as we hear Love Potion number 9 by the Clovers.
I took my troubles down to Madame Ruth. You know that gypsy with the gold-capped tooth. She's got a pad on 34th and Vine, selling little bottles of Love Potion number 9. I told her that I was a flop with chicks. I've been this way since 1956. She looked at my palm and she made a magic sign. She said, what you need is Love Potion number 9. She bent down and turned around and gave me a wink. She said, I'm gonna mix it up right here in the sink. It smelled like turpentine and looked like India ink. I held my nose, I closed my eyes.
I took a drink.
I didn't know it was a day or night. I started kissing everything in sight. But when I kissed the cop at 34th and Vine, he broke my little bottle of Love Potion number 9. Close my eyes.
I took a drink.
I didn't know it was a day or night. I started kissing everything in sight. But when I kissed the cop at 34th and Vine, he broke my little bottle of Love Potion number 9.
Toad tells Steve, played by Ron Howard, about his car being stolen, so he and Cindy Williams, playing Lori, of course, set off on foot to find it. The argument ensues, and Cindy gets pretty mad, causing her to get in Bob Falfa's car when he pulls up, or should I say Harrison Ford's car. As they drive away from Steve, we hear, "Since I Don't Have You" by the Skyliners. sees the stolen car and gets caught trying to steal it back from the original thieves. He's getting his butt kicked when John Milner comes to the rescue. The music for this scene? Chantilly Lace by the Big Bopper.
Hello, baby. Yeah, this is the Big Bopper speaking. Oh, you sweet thing. Do I want? Will I what? Oh, baby, you know what I like. Chantilly lace and a pretty face and a ponytail hanging down, a wiggle in the walk and a giggle in the talk. Make the world go round. There ain't nothing in the world like a big-eyed girl to make me act so funny, make me spend my money, make me feel real loose like a long-necked goose, like a girl. Oh, baby, that's what I like. What's that, baby? But, oh, honey. But, oh, baby, you know what I like. Chantilly lace and a pretty face and a ponytail hanging down, a wiggle in the walk and a giggle in the talk. Lord, make the world go round, round, round. There ain't nothing in the world like a big-eyed girl to make me act so funny, make me spend my money, make me feel real loose like a long-necked goose, like a girl. Oh, baby, that's what I like. What's that, honey? Pick you up at 8, and don't be late. But, baby, I ain't got no money, honey. Oh, all right, honey, you know what I like. Chantilly lace and a pretty face, ponytail hanging down, a wiggle in the walk and a giggle in the talk. Lord, make the world go round. There ain't nothing in the world like a big-eyed girl to make me act so funny, make me spend my money, make me feel real loose like a long-necked goose, like a girl. Oh, baby, that's what I like.
You're listening to Rock and Roll Showcase featuring American Graffiti the Music, Part 3. Ron Howard ends up back at the diner talking to a couple of gals in the booth, mourning the fact that Cindy ran off with Harrison Ford. After all, it was Harrison Ford. I mean, could you blame her? Toad shows up with Ron's car, and Howard races off to try and find Cindy. The song Teen Angel by Mark Dinning.
That fateful night, the car was stalled up on the railroad track. I pulled you out and we were safe, but you went running back. Teen angel, can you hear me? Teen angel, can you see me? Are you somewhere up above? And am I still your own true love? What was it you were looking for that took your life that night? They said they found my high school ring clutched in your fingers tight. Teen angel, can you hear me? Teen angel, can you see me? Are you somewhere up above? And am I still your own true love? Just sweet 16, and now you're gone. They've taken you away. I'll never kiss your lips again. They buried you today. Teen angel, can you hear me? Teen angel, can you see me? Are you somewhere up above? And am I still your own true love?
Toad's just not having a very good night. As Ron Howard drives away in his car, Debbie, played by Candy Clark, is under the impression that Toad's car is being stolen again. Toad has to admit to her that he's really just a Vespa scooter guy. She just smiles and says she had a good time anyway. Now, Kurt, played by Richard Dreyfuss, wanders into the local radio station and ends up talking to Wolfman Jack, who lies and tells him the entire show is on tape while eating a popsicle. And that line, "Sticky little mothers, ain't they?" while Wolfman's shaking Richard Dreyfuss's hand, well, that was all improvised by the Wolfman. By the way, when Wolfman makes that on-air prank phone call to Pinky's Pizza, the voice on the other end of the phone belongs to George Lucas. The song in the background, 1,000 Miles Away by the Heartbeats.
You're 1,000 miles away, but I still have your love to remember you by. Oh, my darling, dry your eye. Daddy's coming home soon. On my knees every day, all I do is pray, baby, just for you. Hope you always want me to. Daddy's coming home soon. It may be on a Sunday morning. It may be on a Tuesday afternoon. But no matter what the day is, I'm going to make it my business to get home soon. You're 1,000 miles away, but I still have your love to remember you by. Oh, my darling, dry your eye. Daddy's coming home soon.
Well, Richard Dreyfuss leaves the radio station, disappointed he didn't really get to meet Wolfman Jack. Harrison Ford finds John Milner again, and they decide to race. Toad convinces John to take him along, and Steve follows while we hear Heart and Soul by the Cleftones.
Heart and soul, the way a fool would do, madly, because you held me tight. Held me tight, 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 and stole a kiss there in the night. Heart and soul, I beg to be adored. Yes, and I lost control and tumbled overboard gladly. That magic night, we kissed, oh we kissed, oh we kissed, oh we kissed. We're in the moon mist. Oh, but your lips were thrilling, much too thrilling. Never before were mine so
Strangely willing.
darling, and now I see what embrace can do. Come on and look at me. You got me loving you madly. That little kiss you stole. Oh, you stole. Yes, no. Oh, you stole. Oh, you stole. Yes, you stole. All my heart. And soul. Yes, you stole. All my heart. And soul. Yes, you stole. You stole.
The drag race begins. The cars are tearing down the highway, but Harrison Ford crashes with Cindy Williams next to him. In this scene, Steve assures Lori that he's staying in town, and it had to be shot in one take. You see, Ron Howard and Cindy Williams had already been released from shooting and were in their street clothes when they were told to put their costumes back on and return to the scene to shoot one more time. By the way, did you notice the license plate on John Milner's car? THX 138, which was another film also directed by George Lucas. That particular plate is on display in the main office of Lucasfilm's Skywalker Ranch. The music set in the mood at this time? Green Onions by Booker T and the MGs. Back at the diner, Richard Dreyfuss gets a phone call from the blonde, remember, played by Suzanne Summers? The ultimate tease, she won't give her name and refuses to meet with him, saying only that he can find her cruising the strip. The owner of the T-Bird, by the way, was never more than a few feet away from his prized possession during the filming and was always wiping here and shining there. He drove Suzanne Summers crazy, telling her what to do and what not to do. The music in the background, Only You by the Platters.
Only you can do make this world seem right. Only you can do make the darkness bright. Only you and you alone can thrill me like you do, and to fill my heart with love for only you. Only you can to make this change in me, for it's true, you are my destiny. When you hold my hand, I understand the magic that you do. You're my dream come true, my one and only you. Only you can make this change in me, for it's true, you are my destiny. When you hold my hand,
You're listening to Rock and Roll Showcase American Graffiti, the Music, Part 3. Richard Dreyfuss decides to go through with his college plans and boards the plane that takes him on his new adventure. As he glances out the window to the street below, in what must be one of the most cruel movie endings ever, he sees the T-Bird traveling down the highway. A love potential lost forever. As we hear Good Night, Sweetheart, Good Night by the Spaniels.
Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, but I really must say, oh, good night, sweetheart. Good night. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, I really must say, oh, good night, sweetheart. Good night. Well, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Baby, I just can't get right. Well, I hate to leave you, baby. I don't mean maybe, because I love you so. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, I really must say, oh, good night, sweetheart. Good night. Your mother, oh, and your father like it if I stay here too long. One kiss in the dark and I'll be going. You know I hate to go. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. Good night, sweetheart. Well, it's time to go. I hate to leave you, I really must say, oh, good night, sweetheart. Good night.
Did you notice how the plane started one of the engines before the passengers were even boarded? In real life, of course, this would never happen. But that's Hollywood. And that plane, by the way, was actually owned by Grand Funk Railroad. As the movie ends, we see images of the cast along with where they ended up in life. John Milner, killed by a drunk driver a year later. Toad, reported missing in action in Vietnam. Ron Howard became an insurance agent in Modesto. And Richard Dreyfuss moved to Canada to avoid the draft and became a writer. Roll credits to All Summer Long by the Beach Boys.
Summer long, you've been with me.
When it was all said and done, American Graffiti became one of the biggest hits of the year and an icon movie for all times. Let's hear from some of the people involved in the production, starting with George Lucas.
When I grew up, I did a lot of cruising, and I grew up working in a foreign car service. I wanted to be a race driver, and I was a mechanic through most of high school. So to me, cars were my life, and that's what I thought I was going to end up doing, was being a mechanic and racing cars the rest of my life. So the cars were very central to me in the movie, and the relationship that the people had with the cars. And it sort of got into an area that I was very interested in, still am, in terms of man's relationship to machines, and also the intimate nature of people's familiarity with disc jockeys who they've never met, who is basically a fictitious fantasy character that they become very friendly with because they listen to them all the time on the radio, especially if they're cruising at night. There's this fantasy character that actually becomes a real part of your life, and that had to do with sort of technology and people's relationship to technology, and sometimes how they relate better to the disc jockey than they do to the person sitting next to them in the car. So I was taking all these themes and putting them together. I was very interested in the relationship between teenagers and rock and roll. I grew up on rock and roll, and I saw a great shift in rock and roll in the early 60s when the British invasion came, and the old innocent rock and roll, came out of the blues, was kind of being distilled and moved in different directions.
Now remember, American Graffiti was the first film to have a wall-to-wall rock and roll gold soundtrack, which set a precedent that becomes fairly common today. In fact, Hollywood now has a credit for something called music supervisor, and that's their job, choosing the songs that set the mood. This position didn't even exist until George Lucas brought the concept to American Graffiti. And let's not forget, he actually filled the position himself. As he wrote the screenplay, he had his own record player and a stack of 45s to draw from.
I had a big rock and roll record library from when I was in high school. I kept everything I had. So I used it. I would pick a particular song and say, okay, this is a song that sort of is this scene, and I would write the scene to that song. So there was a very, very strong relationship between the song and the scene that was written to go with that song. In a way, they're all my character except maybe for Steve, which is why the Steve and Laurie scene, I had a hard time writing them, and why ultimately Bill and Gloria had to write that. I think the character I identify with is Kurt, because he's the one that leaves town, he's the one that goes off, he's the one that has the adventure, and that's what I did. I obviously started out as Terry the Toad, I think everybody does, and so I took my early years of really pre-driving when I was 14 and 15, and that was the basis of that character, plus a lot of friends of mine that I knew. And then eventually, when I was in junior college, I was more like, John Milner, and I was more, I had a race car, and until I almost got killed in it. So that part of the relationship between racing and, always on the edge of getting killed and that sort of thing was where that character came from. But there's this other side of me, which is the anthropologist side, I'm going to get out of town and try to make something of myself. I'm going to go do something really crazy, like go to film school. That's the Kurt side.
I'm sure Richard Dreyfuss felt at least a little pressure, knowing he would be emulating the writer and director. In retrospect, how do you think he feels today about working with George Lucas way back when he was just a young actor?
George changed us and how we feel. After American Graffiti opened, there was an embrace of my generation's childhood's atmosphere that has never gone away. Those who were born after the early 1960s were so angry that they'd missed it that they created TV shows and fashions and hamburger stands just so that they could say that they were a part of it. I was a part of it. I really didn't have a clue when we shot this movie what the impact would be. I was aware only of an extraordinary trust that George had in his actors, his matter-of-fact respect for us. We in the cast, every one of us, felt like we could do anything, and George would never negate, always include. Nothing was ever said about it, but for a young actor, it was hot. My compliments.
Without a doubt, the biggest future star of the cast was Harrison Ford, who played Bob Falfa. How does he feel about his involvement with American Graffiti all these years gone by?
Bob Falfa is really the only outsider in the piece. He's a hot rodder from out of town who comes into town to test his mettle against the hot rod that Paul LeMat drives, and so he's unknown to the kids who live in this town. It created a nostalgia for the music that's featured in it, and the embrace of that particular period of time, drive-in restaurants and the hot rod culture, and small towns of California. George is reflecting on the period of time when he was growing up in a town very much like Petaluma, where we shot American Graffiti. And I think George always felt a bit of an outsider, and I think this is George's story.
Let's go to the hop. Let's go to the hop. Come on, let's go to the hop. You can swing it, you can groove it, you can really start moving at the hop. Where the jockey is smoothest and the music is the coolest at the hop. All the guys and chicks can get their kicks at the hop. Let's go to 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 the hop. Come on, let's go to the hop. Let's go, go! Well, you can rock, you can roll, you can stop and even strolling at the hop, 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 hop. When the record stops spinning, you can lips it with the chicken at the hop, 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 hop. Do the dance sensations that are sweeping the nation at the hop, 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 hop. You can swing it, you can groove it, you can really start to move it at the hop. Where the jockey is smoothest and the music is the coolest at the hop. All the cats and chicks can get their kicks at the hop, 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 hop. Let's go to the 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 hop. Come on, let's go to the hop. Let's go.
You're listening to Rock and Roll Showcase American Graffiti the Music Part 3. When we return, we'll find out how the casting was done. Welcome back to Rock and Roll Showcase. Tom Tayback here with American Graffiti the Music. In this segment, we'll talk about the casting. How did the different actors get picked for the parts? The film's lengthy casting process was overseen by Fred Roos, who worked with producer Francis Ford Coppola on The Godfather. Because American Graffiti's main cast was associated with young actors, the casting call and notices went through numerous high school drama groups and community theaters in the San Francisco Bay Area. Among the actors was Mark Hamill, the future Luke Skywalker in Lucas's Star Wars trilogy. Over 100 unknown actors auditioned for Kurt Henderson before Richard Dreyfuss was cast. George Lucas was impressed with Dreyfuss's thoughtful analysis of the role and as a result, offered the actor his choice of Kurt or Terry the Toad Fields. Roos, a former casting director on The Andy Griffith Show, suggested Ron Howard for Steve Bolander. Howard reluctantly accepted the part, attempting to avoid his typecasting as a child actor. Charles Martin Smith, who got the part as Toad, was in his first year as a professional actor, but had already appeared in 2 feature films, including 20th Century Fox's The Culpeper Cattle Company. Although Cindy Williams was cast as Laurie Henderson, the actress hoped she would get the part of Debbie Dunham, which ended up going to Candy Clark. Mackenzie Phillips, who portrays Carol, was only 12 years old, and under California law, producer Gary Kurtz had to become her legal guardian for the duration of the film. As Bob Falfa, Roos cast Harrison Ford, who was then concentrating on a carpentry career. Ford agreed to take the role on the condition that he would not have to cut his hair. The character has a flat-top crew cut in the script, but a compromise was eventually reached whereby Ford wore a Stetson to cover his hair. Producer Francis Ford Coppola encouraged Lucas to cast Wolfman Jack as himself in a cameo appearance. As Wolfman Jack later reflected, he and George Lucas went through thousands of Wolfman Jack phone calls that had been taped with the public. The telephone calls in the motion picture soundtrack were actual calls from his radio show. Charles Martin Smith, 18, Ron Howard, 18, were the only two real teenage principal actors on the film. Most of the remaining principal cast members were in their 20s, with the exceptions of 12-year-old Mackenzie Phillips and Harrison Ford, who turned 30 during the filming. From this awesome soundtrack, Since I Don't Have You by the Skyliners. Let's talk some of the filming challenges. Although American Graffiti is set in 1962's Modesto, California, Lucas believed the city had changed too much in 10 years and initially chose San Rafael as the primary shooting location. Filming began on June 26, 1972. However, Lucas soon became frustrated at the time it was taking to fix camera mounts to the cars. A key member of the production had also been arrested for growing marijuana. And in addition to already running behind the shooting schedule, the San Rafael City Council immediately became concerned about the disruption that filming caused for local businesses and therefore withdrew permission to shoot beyond a second day. Petaluma, a similarly small town approximately 20 miles north of San Rafael, became more cooperative and American Graffiti moved there without the loss of a single day of shooting. Lucas was, however, able to convince the San Rafael City Council to allow 2 further nights of filming for general cruising shots. Shooting in Petaluma began on June 28th and proceeded at a quick pace. In addition to Petaluma, other locations included Van Ness Avenue in San Francisco, Sonoma, Richmond, Novato, and the Buchanan Field Airport in Concord. The freshman hop dance was filmed in the boys' gymnasium at the Tamalpais High School in Mill Valley. More problems ensued during filming with the cast. Paul Lamont, Harrison Ford, and Bo Hopkins were often drunk between takes and had conducted climbing competitions to the top of the local Holiday Inn sign. One actor set fire to Lucas's motel room, and as you'll recall in another segment, Lamont threw Richard Dreyfuss into a swimming pool, gashing his forehead on the day before he was due to have his close-ups filmed. In addition, 2 camera operators were nearly killed when filming the climactic race scene on Freitas Road outside of Petaluma. We know now that American Graffiti was a tremendous commercial success. But what about critical acclaim? How did it do in that department? Well, it was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture, but lost to The Sting. Further nominations at the 46th Academy Awards included Best Director, George Lucas, of course. Best Original Screenplay, Lucas, Willard Huyck, and Gloria Katz. Best Supporting Actress, Candy Clark. And Best Film Editing. The film won Best Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy at the 31st Golden Globe Awards. Paul Le Mat won Best Promising Newcomer. Lucas was nominated for Best Director, and Richard Dreyfuss was nominated for Best Actor in a Comedy or Musical. More nominations included Cindy Williams by the British Academy of Film and Television Arts for Best Actress in a Supporting Role. Lucas for Outstanding Director in the Directors Guild of America Award. And Lucas, Huyck, and Katz for the Writers Guild of America for Best Original Comedy. All in all, it's not the awards that matter. It's not the box office that matters. It's how this film makes us feel every time we watch it. That never gets old, and that does matter. One more magical moment from the soundtrack, Teen Angel by Mark Dinning.
Clutched in your fingers tight, teen angel, can you hear me? Teen angel, can you see me? Are you somewhere up above? And am I still your own true love?
This has been Rock and Roll Showcase, American Graffiti the Music. I'm Tom Tayback. Thanks for listening.